Hey everyone, welcome back to the Smash Property Podcast. I'm Nick V and this is Akira, and in today's episode, we're going to be talking about the fear of losing money on an investment property.
Yeah.
Now, we hear this fairly common. Might buy in the wrong area, the market's going to tank after I buy, a whole range of different things and fears that come into play when you're talking about the fear of losing money in property. So today we're going to go through how you can kind of, I guess, acclimatize to that fear that you may have, and some things that you can do along the way to, I guess, try and eliminate that fear as much as you can. Obviously, everyone's going to be different and there's going to be some fears that you just can't, but we're going to give you some tips and tools to really just do your best to eliminate a lot of that noise along the way.
Manage it.
Manage the fear. And obviously, as usual, all of the gold drops that we tie into these podcast episodes. So, all right, but first things first, Kira, tell us how you're doing.
I'm good. I'm getting over the flu, so I sound a bit nasally. I'm sorry.
You sound a bit raspy.
Yes. But I'm good. I'm good. It's been a busy week on the buyer's agency side, which is great. I can see a lot of people are coming into the market knowing that interest rates are, of course, going to drop too. So I think people are getting ready to roll.
People are getting ready to roll.
Yeah.
Springtime, weather's good, energy's shifting.
Vibe.
And the vibe's good. I'm actually really glad to be back in the studio. We were kind of on the road a little bit over the past sort of few weeks and maybe months. We did, we've done Perth, we've done Brizzy, we've done Bundy, we've done Hong Kong, we've done Thailand. We're back.
Yeah, sitting still for a little bit.
Sitting still for a little bit, yeah. So just kind of recapturing the vibe.
Getting back into routine.
Yeah, I don't like routine. Although after our conversation yesterday, I feel like I'm going to have to get my
Called
routine.
you up and waking up a little too late.
Get my routine together. But yeah, I'm going to, like I said to you yesterday, I'm going full monk mode over the next, I haven't figured out a time period yet, but.
Monk mode. Tell us what that is.
So for me, it varies for everyone. For me, there's no alcohol, there's no anything, there's minimal distractions. It's really just me, my brain, my body, and my work. That's all I'm going to be doing.
I love it.
For the next period of time. And some of the reasons why, and I don't mind sharing, I've kind of felt a little bit flat lately. I've kind of felt in a little bit down, a little bit stressed, a little bit kind of, hey, where's everything going? How's it all getting there? And I'm just naturally I'm a visionary kind of person. So I'm kind of living in the future. So when my present isn't as the future that I predicted, I sort of start to get starts to wear, like I get a little bit, the dog in me starts to come out a little bit. And so I need to recognize that, understand that. And that's why I'm going full monk mode for a period of time. I don't know what it is, whether it's a couple of days, a week, a few months, I don't know. I will come to that in my own time.
Yeah.
But it's not always good. Like,
100%.
You know what I mean? You're going to go through these periods. I've been keeping a diary.
Yes.
And I've noticed patterns every year where it's almost like every quarter, like one quarter you're up, next quarter you're down.
You're a human.
Next quarter you're in the middle. The other one you're up. The other one, do you know what I mean? So I'm just this is my time of year where I'm down a little bit.
Yeah, you need to hibernate and go into that zone where you focus and channel.
Not hibernate, but I just need to energy inwards.
That's what I mean.
And
I think interesting enough, if you guys have not done this, knowing your personality, I would suggest doing a personality trait test.
Personality test. It's called the Myers-Briggs type indicator. Yeah, super interesting.
You're very in tune with your personality type, the archetype.
Well, because it was actually a friend at work. A friend at my old work introduced me to this. I had no idea about this whole thing.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, for 34 years, I was thinking I was a freaking nutbag. But then I found out there's other nutbags out there like me,
just like you.
Anyhow. We digress.
Yes, let's get into it.
Let's crack into this episode, overcoming the fear of losing money with an investment property. And why don't you sort of start with the acknowledgement and the normalization? Talk to us about that.
Yeah, I thought this would be a super helpful podcast topic because I'm on the phones a lot to people wanting to get into the market, thinking about it, not sure. And, you know, when you're having these conversations on talking to people who are interested but not quite sure, I feel like you learn a lot about who they are as people. And this is why that personality testing is so helpful.
It's important, yeah.
Because I think, look, everybody's at different stages in their life. They have different fears, whether they've been burnt before, you know, whether they're just super analytical on whether things
Risk averse.
Risk averse.
Yeah.
So I think knowing that, you know, we're quite a few properties deep now, that fear, it doesn't go away. It's part of being like a human.
It is.
I think. Yeah. So it's just understanding that almost everybody goes through it. It's not unnatural. And at the end of the day, the main thing is managing it and knowing how to handle it, whether you just succumb to it or do you utilize it and use it as a force to push you forward.
Yeah, exactly.
So
I think it's really important that people out there kind of normalize that fear. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, everybody has a fear of something. Let's talk specifically property, right?
Okay.
There's a million and one things that people can have a fear over when it's specifically related to property. So I think to help the listeners and the audience, you as an individual need to recognize what that is for you, what that fear is for you. And I'll talk to my fear of property investing. And I was talking to you about this off camera, is for me, the idea of, in the beginning, the idea of a mortgage and having debt that I needed to pay back, you know, and hundreds of thousands of dollars. I said this to you last night. It felt like an invisible chain just holding me back, holding me down. It's like you can't go anywhere until you pay this debt back. Do you know what I mean? And that's how it felt, you know, I guess like metaphorically, that's how it kind of felt.
You're using past tense.
Do you know
Interesting.
what I mean? Yeah. That's how it felt in the beginning, because my fear was, okay, I've got all this debt. I'm going to have to stay employed until I'm fucking dead to pay back all this money. But then it was like, okay, well, that's because I had a lack of understanding of how the system actually worked. Do you know what I mean? Now that I know how the property and the finance system are integrated and how they work, that's no longer a fear.
Exactly.
Do you know what I mean?
Because you understand at the end of the day, with having debt, there's obviously good debt, bad debt. Yeah. And then over and above that, you have gosh, I can't speak today. You have assets that are growing in value, which are so much more valuable to you than, you know, just focusing on debt. Yeah. Which is going to become irrelevant with inflation anyway.
Yeah, exactly. When it's tied to an income producing asset. So I think everybody needs to just realize, what is your fear? Yeah. And then the next component of that it will go to is the knowledge. But
so I think, yes, mortgages that, you know, slave to your mortgage, nobody wants that. But the other component that I'm finding with a lot of new investors that I'm speaking with is that fear of being in a deficit for cash flow. Yeah. Obviously, interest rates are higher than what it's been over the last 3 years prior. So I think it's one of those things where, you know, everybody's going to have a different type of fear, whether it's cash flow, whether it's being tied to debt, whether it's buying a lemon property or property that doesn't grow in value. Yep. So I think, firstly, if you're going through these emotions, it's figuring out what is it specifically that's holding you back. Because if you know what that is, then you can find out more information about it to make sure you have the tools to make a more informed decision.
Correct, yeah.
So,
which is the sort of next, I guess, pillar of the podcast is, like, once we know what our fear is, that, you know, hey, we're going to lose money or whatever it might be, we then need to arm ourselves with the knowledge, all right, which is how I sort of got over my fear of, you know, the mortgage and being, you know, those invisible chains. So there's really a couple of things here. So there's lots of, we're in a beautiful age right now, you know, the technology age where there's just information everywhere. It's an advantage, but it can also be a disadvantage because you need to know where you're getting that information from. Yeah. Right. What is the source of that information you are feeding yourself? which is then going to allow you to either overcome that fear, or if you're feeding yourself the wrong info, it can actually exacerbate that fear and make it worse than what it actually was in the very beginning. So I think my advice for people out there that are in that sort of research, knowledge seeking phase of their journey is just do an audit on where you're getting the information from. I'm always a big advocate of understanding all perspectives. And understanding all perspectives means you've got to take in information from a whole bunch of different sources. You know, if you're reading books, get multiple authors, right? If you're watching podcasts, watch multiple channels. Do you know what I mean? And just like widen your lens, and then through that wide lens, you're then going to be able to then narrow down, okay, that message really resonates with me, and the information in there I've found to be true from the validation that I've done with it, and let me run with that.
Yes.
Right. I think that's super important.
Seek that information out. Yeah.
Yeah. No, seek it out. And like there'd be a lot of people, and myself included, you'd be kind of research. I don't want to do freaking research. Like, I don't have time for this. That life's hard enough as it is. Like, how am I gonna, I was a guy who, like, I dropped out of school. I'd gone through a whole bunch of different jobs. I was in my mid-20s before I even read like my first book, like end to end. You know what I mean? Because I always used to copy people at school, and I never actually did the homework.
Yeah.
So I never read a full book. I'd read, obviously. I'm not illiterate. No, I'm not saying that. But I mean, I could be. No. But I never actually read a full book end to end until my sort of mid-20s. Yeah. Right. So like, if people are watching this being like, well, I don't want to research. Like, if you want it bad enough and you want to, move your position forward, you will put yourself in a position where you will find the time. You will find a medium that resonates with you. Potties, videos, books, whatever.
Yeah. So I agree with you. And me, for an example, when I'm like at work, I'm just too tired. Like, before getting into property investing, I'd be working 12-hour shifts sometimes. Yeah. I'd be so tired. All I do is just watch like a couple of motivational videos. David Goggins wasn't out at the time, but right now I probably watch him. Yeah. Just fuel yourself, fire yourself up, because if you are putting yourself in a position where you can't see it changing, burn and dig a little bit deeper so that you do have that extra energy, and it's only going to mean it's for a period of time to get yourself out of that position, because if you keep coasting and doing what you're doing, nothing's going to change.
Yeah. It's actually funny you saying that. I was speaking with a guy from Perth the other day. Awesome dude. We had a great chat over the phone, but he was like, his perception of himself, he said to me, he's like, oh, I'm only an aircon guy.
Yeah.
And I was like, nah, bro, like, I'm only a property guy. Like, yeah, we might have our own sort of fields of like expertise, but that doesn't mean that you can't branch out of that and become a property guy, or I could become an aircon guy. Like, so I think labeling yourself, you've got to be careful with what you label yourself as.
Agree.
Because that own internal dialogue is then going to shape your world around you. So I think, just super important for the guys out there.
Yeah, exactly. So basically, just to summarize what you said, know what your fear is specifically, and then research, get knowledge from multiple different sources. And I feel like we've said this on podcasts prior.
Every second potty,
it's true. It's true. It's like, you've got to be able to get your research done so that you can push yourself ahead. And it's painful. Yeah. Don't get me wrong, I hated it. It gets to a point where you're so tired.
It is tedious, yeah.
But you got to do it if you want to see yourself moving forward.
And there's a second point here in, like, you've got to have some base level knowledge of the property game before you go into it, right? The second point here was get guidance from people who are in the field. Like, speak to a mortgage broker or a couple of mortgage brokers. Get a feel for how the brokers can help you with the finance perspective when it comes to property investing. Speak to some accountants, right? Get on the phone and chat with a couple of them. Hey, I'm looking to do this. What's the right structure? What's the right way I should be buying? And to be honest, a lot of the stuff in the beginning when I was talking to accountants, it went over my head.
Yeah.
Like it just did, because it was it was new. It was way above, where my knowledge level was at the time. But I would take that information and I would go, okay, literally don't understand anything that they're saying. I'd write it down and then I'll go and research it. Hey, what are they talking about when they talk about structuring? Like when they talk about SMSF or all those sorts of things, what does that actually mean?
Trust,
and then in your own time, go, okay, I've got a knowledge gap here. Let me just invest a little bit of time to understand what it is. And maybe you need to have a few more conversations, right? There's obviously BAs. You can, outsource the whole buying process too. Now, I wouldn't ever recommend blindly outsourcing without at least having a baseline level of knowledge first. You just want to make sure you don't get swindled. You want to make sure, you can sense check and, hey, does this person, BA, know what they're doing, right? Because there's tons of them out there now. So that research and that guidance from that team, I think, is the way that you're going to be able to move forward and really just eliminate that fear, whatever that might be, full stop. Right?
Yeah, and it probably, to your point as well, it speeds up the journey because it takes a bit of time to read books, listen to podcasts.
It does.
If you have people around you who already know and have done it, then it just makes it so much quicker.
The key to, to that is, to your point, make sure they've done it. Whether it's a broker, make sure they kind of have properties of their own, or they've got other investors that you can speak to. And,
100%.
We've been there many, many times. So we've acknowledged our fear. We know what that is. We've then gone into, okay, this my fear is X. Therefore, I need to do research on XYZ to really overcome or mitigate that fear and that risk that I can kind of see with that. Now, let's talk about a few sort of like risk management kind of things that you can come up with, because whilst we can maybe eliminate all fear in the ideal world, we can't eliminate all risk.
That's
risk
right.
is going to be there no
You
matter
said it
how
really
fearless we are, right?
Yeah.
So what are some ways that we can how we can manage these risks?
Yeah. I think the easiest, quickest, simplest way is to know what you're doing in terms of projection. So forecasting the specific property that you're looking at so that you understand what it looks like, just not only after you purchase it in 5 years, in 10 years. I get it. Nobody has a crystal ball. You can use all the data you want, but if you don't do that in terms of forecasting, your knowledge gap is just, you're shooting in the dark. You have no idea. No idea at all. So I think at least having a sense check of what data there is, both short-term and long-term data, to then be able to provide yourself some sort of comfort in regards to what, you can expect to see. Because maybe that property isn't worth it. It's got shit growth,
I really, really love that. And even before we were BAs, you and I had worked on some pretty powerful tools that we still use to this very day for us and our clients. So if anyone's out there and they're kind of like, well, how do I get a tracker? I want that. Head over to Smash Property Investing on Instagram or Facebook. Like and follow the page. Send us a DM, right?
Yeah, hit me up.
And we'll give you the tools that we have used for years and have perfected and crafted over years. An Excel document that defeats all Excel documents.
Yeah.
Right? It's easy to use.
And that's the thing. When you're doing this, you want it to be as simple as possible. I'm going to share something that's probably just to provide insight. I think I was a year into investing. Honestly, I didn't comprehend the power of compounding with property. I looked at the sheet and I plugged in my 1 or 2 properties I had at the time. And I was like, oh, it's not 5% each year of the initial value. It's the year before. It compounds on the next year, every year. And I was like, what? Wow.
The secret power of compounding.
So I think being able to have the right tools and see it accurately. So if you're using tools and data, make sure you accurately understand it so that you're not just pushing yourself back and being misinformed. So use your tools.
Tip number 1 to manage your risk is have a tool to track and forecast where the property that you're thinking of, and maybe you've already got one, where it might be in 5, 10, 15, 20 years. Super important. You want to know where that is. I think probably
tip number 2.
Outside of that, tip number 2 is have a budget Now I hate I hate this word. It's just like
Dorky.
budget. It just sounds like ew. Like, you know what I mean? I don't want to put a budget together. Like, that's just, you know what I mean? So, but it's important. And I'll tell you why.
Okay.
When you have, you know, say you're working, you've got your income coming in, you don't have any properties at this point, but you know, you've got your fuel, you've got your food, your groceries, you've got, you know, an insurance payment here and there, you know, a rego or this or that, you know, a phone bill, a Netflix, whatever. Your life's quite simple in that regard.
Mm-hmm.
When you add one property into that, that simpleness starts to degrade, because then you've got a property, sure, but that property then has income. That property then has expenses, and multiple expenses every single month through the whole year.
Yeah.
And you need to be able to have cash on hand, you know, when the insurance of the property is due, right? You need to know when that is, so you can forecast. All right, cool. Well, I need to have $1,500 in October to pay for this thing.
Yeah.
And then when you add multiple properties into that, that equation then starts to get more and more and more complicated. So if you can master your money management from day one, like when you've got, you don't have any properties, by the time you start plugging properties into your portfolio, you're then mastering that, and it's not an issue. Whereas if you start to have multiple properties, and they'll come quite quickly, if you're not on top of that money management game, like, it's going to be very hard to do. You know?
No, it's not game over.
It's not game over, but it makes it just harder than it needs
difficult.
to be.
I think I had a metaphor rather that I heard. I kind of wanted to share because I think it resonated with me so well. Someone said, your finance is like a mistress. Now stay with me on this one. So basically, do you know how much you have in your account almost every other day?
Every second of the day.
Yeah. A lot of people don't.
Yeah.
They don't even know what's in their bank account. With that phrase, it's basically indicating that if you don't pay attention to what you have, it'll leave you. Money is going to come to you if you know where you're at with it and what you're doing with it. If you have no idea, doesn't care about you, it's going to leave.
Yeah.
So pay attention to it.
Pay attention to your cash, folks. It's important.
Yeah.
Pay attention to what your properties are. Just pay attention in life. Like, look where you're going. Do you know what I mean? You're not going to drive down the street.
I that when I'm walking around sometimes.
You're not going to drive down the street blind. You know, maybe some of you do, but like, you know, watch where you're going. All right. Look out. All right. So tip number 3 for managing your risk is, tell me, what is it?
Tip number 4?
Number 3. Listen.
Number 3. Sorry. Talking about listening, paying attention. Tip number 3, I think, is diversity. That's what I had on here.
That's not tip number 3, but we can go with it.
Buffers?
Buffers.
All right, we go to buffers. I'm on diversity. I want to talk to diversity.
You can talk to diversity? All right, let me round the buffers out. Cash buffers. I was kind of just insinuated a bit what that is, right? When you know, take the no property example, right? When you got no properties, you know there's periods of time in the year where you need to have a bit of extra cash lying around. Maybe you've got some birthdays that are all bunched into 1 month, or maybe you've got all your insurances bunched into 1 month. Same thing when you have properties. I'm like that. October is just a deadly month for me. I have like car regos due, insurance is due, every single property friggin', insurance is due. It's a hectic month. Anyway, so like know that happens from time to time, and just put buffers in place. Like, prepare for the dishwasher in your property to, shit itself, and, prepare. Have cash buffers. Whatever you're comfortable doing, $1,000 or $10,000, whatever for you, just have a buffer in place to know that you can sleep easy,
of mind,
knowing that, if something blows up tomorrow, you're good. You've got it covered, all right? At least for the most part.
Exactly.
And no, folks,
things will go wrong.
No. Credit cards are not cash buffers, okay? They are debt machines. No.
Unless you're using the points.
Yeah, no, that's a whole different podcast. Let's leave
Okay. All right.
Diversification, hit me.
Okay. So diversification. I think when I was thinking about this point, I was understanding, the different types of assets you can get. You can get houses, you can get commercial, you can get units, you can get townhouses. you can get different areas, whether it be Perth, Brisbane, Adelaide, Hobart, freaking Bundaberg, regional. You want to know that, you have not all your eggs in one basket. If you do that, it enables you to create a very well-rounded portfolio.
Yep.
By doing so, you make sure that, at the end of the day, if cash flow was an issue in all your capital cities, that you have a capital regional to give you some, cash in your pocket. So I think having a range allows you to minimize risk and get over the fear of, things going wrong and going wrong rapidly for everything. Because as opposed to 10 properties in Brisbane, you just have a couple, maybe 4. The risk is a lot lowered for your overall overall portfolio. Sorry.
Yeah. So I think if, sticking with the theme of, you're worried about losing money in property, don't have all your properties in the one location. Because, if that's a fear of yours, then hey, like what you just said, if you've got them all in Brizzy or Queensland for that matter, Queensland market tanks, hypothetically, yeah, your eggs are all squashed. Whereas if you kind of have, maybe a bit of WA, maybe a bit of Queensland, maybe a bit of Victoria now it's coming up, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
You want to just spread the risk, manage the risk. And yeah, I mean, there's a whole other bunch, land tax and all that sort of stuff that, we won't bore the guys with, but that's all stuff to be considered as well.
As well.
All right. So overcoming the fear of losing money in property, acknowledge the fear, know what that fear is for you and where it's coming from, right? Be real with yourself and just know, hey, it's normal to have the fear. Everybody's got it to some degree.
But don't bullshit yourself, I think. Sorry to swear, but I'm just saying.
You heard it. Don't bullshit yourself. So how do you start to break down that fear barrier, right? You're going to have to increase your knowledge where you have a knowledge gap. You do that through research, whatever medium works for you. Get guidance from a team of pros who have done it. They've been there. All right. And manage the risk, right? Because there's ways we can eliminate fear, but we cannot eliminate all risk.
Yes.
I know this from my 15-year banking career, guys. So use tools to track and monitor and forecast where you're going. Have budgets in place to know what your financial situation looks like over the course of a year or whatever that might be. Have cash buffers in place. So if it hits the fan tomorrow, you've got a little safety net there, right? And credit cards are not a cash buffer, guys. And diversify, right? If your fear of losing money is in property, diversify that portfolio.
That's right.
That is what you can do to overcome the fear of losing money in property.
Yeah. It's better to overcome it than not be in it.
You don't want to stay in fear. Fear is just, you
gotta face
who wants
it.
to stay there?
Gotta be like Batman.
But for those of you who are loving the podcast and you haven't subscribed to the channel, I'm looking directly at you and I'm shaking my head. You know what I mean? Look at me. I'm shaking my head. No, just kidding. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. We greatly appreciate every single subscriber that comes through because I get a notification on my phone and we have a little party every time someone subscribes. Likewise, our Instagram, we are putting tons of valuable content on there, like where to invest, how to invest, what suburbs to invest. If you ain't on our Instagram at Smash Property Investing,
jump on it.
Follow us. We're going to share tons of data, information, insights that you will not get anywhere else. What else have we got? We got TikTok. We got Facebook. We got LinkedIn. I'm all over LinkedIn. My 15-year career banking, I've got LinkedIn like you wouldn't believe. Top 10 hotspots we shared on LinkedIn the other day.
Actually, yeah, I'm actually going to drop that maybe on our website. We'll
chuck that on the website. So head over to smashpropertyinvesting.com.au. You can download the top 10 suburbs for September. It's a nice PDF document. You've got all of the data in there. It's not just us saying it. You can see for yourself what we see and maybe make some decisions. Get into the market.
Yeah.
How about that?
All the days.
Smash Property Podcast. Thanks for joining us. We're back in the studio. I'm loving this.
Vibing.
And we will see you guys very soon. Thanks so much for joining.
Thank you.
All right. Bye-bye.